Welcome to Unleashed, where MMA icon and power wrestling titan Dan the Beast Severn and Eric Carroll deliver a knockout punch of raw, unfiltered talk. Unleashed. Gear up. Gear up. It's beast mode.
All right, man. Well, it's nice to meet you. I have heard a lot about you. We just got through interviewing Bushwhacker Luke, and you were a good part of his story.
Yeah, he's got a funny accent, that guy. I don't know where the heck he's from. I think he's from the South.
From the South.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but it's kind of unique, the fact that you're both from New Zealand, though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's and getting in that industry, because you look at how far away New Zealand is in comparison to the States and stuff like that. But one of the unique things that he brought up was, and that's one of my questions for you, is he said that the cards in New Zealand, it was actually like amateur wrestling would be on part of the card, and
Yes.
then when it came to the pro matches, then that was that they were two, like almost like two different styles, but there was a lot of good amateur wrestling moves that were being done.
Yeah, that's what I kind of, when I started, they had a couple of amateur bouts to start, and then the pro bouts, and I tried to, even when I came here, try to put, a little bit of the amateur stuff in, the go behinds, the takedowns, sit outs, and, start the match like that. And it seemed to work.
Well, did you come from like an amateur wrestling background, freestyle?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, I wasn't in a position to, we didn't have wrestling in school. And I had a cousin of mine, though, that represented New Zealand in the Empire Games, which are the British version of the Olympic Games.
Okay.
Wow. So what got you into professional wrestling, Tony?
Well, actually, I was playing people are familiar with rugby, but they're not that familiar with rugby league. And I played rugby during the school days. And then when I left, I think I was 18. And then I switched over to rugby league.
What's the major difference on the two?
Well, rugby league, you have 13 men. And then when you tackle, you get up and play the ball backwards. Whereas in rugby, when you were tackled, you formed a ruck and everybody just piled on everybody. And 9 times out of 10, the ball wouldn't come out. So you'd have a scrum. So it was stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. But now they've changed the rules, and rugby is as fast, if not faster, than rugby league.
I didn't know there was actually a difference between the two, because I still don't quite understand rugby in itself. I've watched it a number of different occasions. All I simply know is that they're definitely tougher than football players because there's no pads.
Yeah, there's no pads, and you're playing for 2 40-minute halves, and you just go, go, go.
Yeah, the cardiovascular is a major contributor factor, but I kept thinking, even when I looked at like what I think they call a helmet over there, wasn't much of a helmet, to say the least.
Yeah, they have for your cauliflower ears, protection, a leather, a headgear they call it. Yeah, like wrestling.
Yeah, almost like amateur wrestling headgear. Yes, to a certain extent. Yes. That was actually pretty comical when I was watching it. I kept thinking, heck, I could throw on some of my own amateur wrestling headgear to be just fine to go out there with.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing in rugby league, they're teaching wrestling as part of your training. Like wrestling and weightlifting. I started weightlifting back in '64. And, that was a no-no, you won't be able to run, you'll get muscle bound.
Oh, muscle bound, yeah. The whole theory about becoming muscle
all
bound.
that stuff, and meanwhile, I was I think there was one guy who weighed 160 pounds, and I was about 200 pounds, and he could beat me by like 2 yards over a 100-yard sprint. Yeah, so that put that fallacy to bed.
So you learned parts of wrestling in the rugby. Now, how did that transform over into like the pro wrestling side? Were you a fan of pro wrestling back then?
No, not really. I knew a few guys. Actually, there was a guy in our club. We had like clubs, rugby clubs, you know, where you had the young fellows, like 6, 7 years old. They played in the midget teams, and then it worked up first grade, second grade, third grade, and then you went on to seniors, senior reserve, and then seniors. But there were a couple of guys in my club that were professional wrestlers, and they were quite characters too. And they asked me, probably because, you know, of the weightlifting, you know, if I'd be interested. And I said, sure, I'll give it a go, because it was a little extra money, like you'd make an extra $12 or $16, $20 a week. And if you're a main event, you could make 40 or 50. Oh, wow. But we didn't do any traveling. You know, we were at home, and they had it maybe twice a month in the city of Auckland at the YMCA. And, you know, I started in 69, and previous to that, working out, we just had a mat with a little bit of felt on a hardwood floor, and we didn't have any ropes or anything. So it was almost like amateur wrestling, except it was pro wrestling with no ropes and a hard floor to fall on. So my first couple of bumps were like, holy moly.
You can feel them now just by talking about it, can't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was no giving the floor. It was a hardwood floor made with real wood. And it was like, Jesus, am I going to get through this? As a matter of fact, I did hurt my left hip, and it still bothers me today at times, you know?
Okay. Let me tell you a quick little story. When I first started involved in professional wrestling, I was going to Lima, Ohio, working with Al Snow, professional wrestler Al Snow.
Yeah.
And you know, he had a ring and stuff like that. But I was only getting 2 workouts in a week, and it was an hour and a half drive there, hour and a half drive back.
Oh my God!
Yeah. And then you know, then there would be some guys that would get in the ring, but they would be in there just talking. I'm like, going, talk outside the ring. Let me get back in the ring just so I can keep practicing this stuff. So literally, after only my 2 or 3 times of going over to Al's place, I said, Al, do you care if I take some measurements off of this ring? And literally, I took measurements, and I built my own ring at my own training facility so that I could keep doing the repetition of things. And then I'll go get whatever the new classes were. I'd write them on down. But what I'm alluding to is that when I finally got to the point that I'm like, there is no professional wrestling. I should say there's no wrestling taking place in professional wrestling. I'm making, what can I do set up at my own facility? So I actually had wrestling mats inside my facility. Mm-hmm. So when a professional wrestler would come in, they would take all the bumps on the amateur wrestling mats. But then in the beginning, they had to learn how to circle, how to play to a crowd. You know, nobody's there, but you had to learn how to do all of these actions. And when you were ready to do your first match, you had to pass 5 blue mat matches. Why blue mat was only because the mat was blue, but it was the same dimensions. Just I'm going right back to what you were talking about here at the beginning. It was the exact same size as a ring, minus the ropes, minus the turnbuckles. So literally, you had to step onto this mat, be in character, and know that you have to wrestle the first match bare bones minimum of 5 minutes. Bare bones minimum 5 minutes. If it's anything less than that, automatic failure. No matter if it's a 5-star match, automatic failure, because you have to learn how to fill windows of time.
Yeah.
And that's what I did for the first one. But and with each progressive match, the time got a little bit longer, and then but it taught them how to actually wrestle because they had no ropes, no turnbuckles. They literally had to go out there and wrestle. And when, being on the independent scene, sometimes you could go to a show and there were on occasions where the ring did not show up. And this might be like at a high school fundraiser, and the ring did not show up, and they would roll out a wrestling mat. And all these guys that are known as flyers and stuff like that, they're lost. They don't have nothing. They don't know what to do. All my guys, they can walk out there and they can still, they're like going, blue mat match, Dan Severn daughters, let's go do our blue mat match here now. So I take pride in that one.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those. I remember one was up in Hudson, New York, and I think another one was Akron, Ohio, if I remember rightly.
Oh, wow. I'm curious, no ropes. It sounds like a completely different style over there in New Zealand. But Tony, what was kayfabe like during that time?
Yeah, we were pretty much on the ball even over there, and then I went to Australia in 1971. I went for 3 months, and even though we traveled on the flights, from town to town, it was pretty strict. You couldn't be seen out with other guys.
Yeah.
So, but when we were in Australia, Jim Barnett was the promoter there, and we got, we were dressed up. We had to wear ties and jackets, and white or blue shirts, or it wasn't just a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. So
when I think of professional wrestling, I guess more I think of the fanny pack and the rollerblade suitcase. That's the standard profile I do of most. And Zuba pants. There you go.
Yeah. The Zuba. Yeah, that was. I still got a pair here. I got from Animal from Legion of Doom.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was in it. I'm pretty sure I got one somewhere here in the house.
I probably have a pair of Zubas somewhere in my archive of clothes there as well. So,
what was it with the fanny packs, guys? That seems to be a big thing in pro wrestling.
I have no idea. I guess it's just Fred Blassie. He came out with the man bag. He was carrying that, when he came to New York, and that was like, what the heck? So maybe the fanny pack was in place of the man bag. But I still got a fanny pack. I got one.
That's mine right there, Tony. I gotta say, I still work because I simply know that if I grab my fanny pack, I have everything I need. I got my keys. I got my wallet. It's all there.
Yeah. I've got one. A friend of mine gave it to me in 2002, and I've still got it.
Tell us about when you made your way over to the States, Tony.
Well, I was in Australia in 1971, and the promoter, Jim Barnett, on my second trip there, he said, would you like to go to the States? And I'd heard from the other boys that he would only ask you once. So I said, yes, just like that. And I didn't have a pot to pee in, I had nothing. And I saved some money in Australia, and then I came over with a local wrestler in Australia by the name of Johnny Gray. So we landed in Florida, in Tampa, Florida. That was the first territory. I had $200, and I think Johnny had $200. But we had two Australian wrestlers there, Larry O'Day and Bob Miller. So they met us, and, they showed us around. Of course, we had to find an apartment, and we had to find a car, or otherwise we end up, walking a mile to the Sportatorium, and somebody would pick us up to take us to the town. But that was in 1972, and then John got homesick, and he went back to Australia. So that left me. I was only going to stay for a year. and was working in Florida. I wasn't making a whole lot, but, just making a living. I thought when I came over here in 72, I'd make at least 500 a week. But none of the wrestlers would tell you how much you would make in the United States. Their answer was, it's not how much you make, kid, it's how much you save. So
okay.
I just had my expense for the week, and then I had to send some money home to the family, and I was able to save, I think, $40 or $50 a week, which was like, holy Christ, this is good, And then Tony Marino, who I'd met in New Zealand briefly, he was down in Florida. He worked a couple of shots. That were guys used to come to Florida, for a mini vacation, and they'd pick up a couple of bucks, by wrestling. And he said, "How you doing?" I said, "Not too good." And which was the truth. And he said, "Well, maybe you should come up to New York," which he meant Buffalo. And I mentioned it to Eddie Graham, and Eddie said, "Oh, no, you don't want to go there, but let me give Vince McMahon a call." And it was 3 weeks went by, and I walked in the office, and I said, "Eddie, did you get in touch with Vince?" He said, "Oh, let me give him a call now. I've tried a couple of times." And he got me booked right there. He was on the phone with Vince, and I was listening to the conversation. And on September 20th, 1972, I went up to Philadelphia for my first television. Vince used to bring in for 4 TVs, and they were 3 weeks apart. So then when you got there to the house show, then the people knew who you were. But they knew who I was anyway because they seen me on Florida TV. So, and that started it. And I was there for about 2.5 years. And I was there about a year. And then they tagged me with Haystacks Calhoun and became tag team champions for the summer, and worked against Fuji and Tanaka, which I learned a lot off those guys. And they kept me in the ring. We were in Madison Square Garden. We went like 31 minutes or something. I was in the ring for 27 because they couldn't do a whole lot with Haystacks,
Sure.
So the whole thing was, let's see the rookie tag the big man. And we went that way. And I was just there to, have a good match. I wasn't there to make myself look good. But it worked out.
Tony, how big of a man was Haystacks Calhoun? I've seen different videos and stuff of him, but he looked enormous.
Yeah, he was a big guy. I think he was billed at 500, but then I seen an article recently where they claimed he was 600, but I don't think he was 600. Yokozuna was 648 pound, I think.
Wow.
I weighed him we were in the Philippines, and there was a big scale there. So we got him on, and he was genuine 648, 46 somewhere.
Yeah,
what's a couple of pounds between hundreds?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like how much time did you spend in like the territories and like the NWA before really getting to the end of your career with the WWF?
Yeah, I spent most of my time in the WWF. I'll give you a quick run through. I spent 7 months in Florida, and then I went to New York, and I was there for 2 years and 11 months or 10 months, something like that. And then I went to Atlanta for 6 months. I went to San Francisco for a year, and then I came back to the to New York area for 2 years. Then I went to the Carolinas for a year, and then back to New York. And I kind of finished my career there. And then I was offered a job as a road agent. So I took that with with the help of Chief J. Strongbow. You know, I was with him for a few months, and then to get the hang of what a road agent was doing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, during that time of the territories, that had to be a very magical time because you're in this community. Nothing is on the cell phones are not there, so you can actually work with the same guy and do basically the same finish or different finishes. But the fact that you get to work with the same guy over and over again, you become so familiar with them that you have more magical matches. Where I see guys that when they go over matches now, they lay everything out in such detail, like going, "Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to remember all this. This is just too much."
Yeah, I didn't. I remember a story George Steele told me. He was working with Randy Savage, and Randy gave him 2 pages of the legal pad, and that was the match. And George looked at that, and he looked at him, and he crushed it up and threw it in the garbage. The thing is, when we wrestled, we went out, listened to the audience, and gave them what they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we got reaction that way. Like, let me see. After Bruno lost to superstar Billy Graham in Baltimore, I was in the ring before Bruno left because they were frightened of a riot there. And then my opponent was Baron von Raschke. And we went for, like we were doing a 20-minute match, but for 12 minutes, there was nothing. The crowd weren't interested. So he had me in an armbar, and we just stayed the night, tried to get out of it, but couldn't. Then at the 12-minute mark, the people realized there was somebody in the ring. And then from the 12-minute for the next 8 minutes, it was like a main event. But we had to wait. But in today's market, they would have a match drawn out, and they'd go in, and the reaction or not, they just do the match.
Yes. Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, this is what you're getting. It's not what you want, but this is what you're going to get. That's the way I look at it. We used to wait, like Bob Orton Jr., fantastic professional wrestler. And I was wrestling him one time. We started together in Florida, but they were going boring, and Bob said, "Yeah, you think it's boring now? We're going to bore the shit out of you, And then, of course, it turned out, like the people went so low, there was only one way. They had to come back up, and they did, and they went nuts.
Nah, I like that. That's sticking to your guns, that kind of stuff.
That was psychology. I would, if I had anything to do with anything, it would be, for 2-3 hours a day, you'd have to watch the old timers work, and you'd have to get their psychology, like Pat Patterson, Ray Stevens, Johnny Valentine. He went to sleep one time in a headlock with Wahoo, but Johnny was fantastic. He just waited, and he worked on the, one particular hold. And Killer Carl Cox were fantastic psychologists, even Dick Murdoch, because he learned from those guys,
How much of that do you think got lost after all the territory shut down?
Oh, it's just about everything.
Yeah.
The whole damn thing, it's so easy. Like so, there was a saying there, less is more. I'd be working with somebody and, an old timer, and I say, I'd like to fit this in. We can't really look at me. He said, listen, kid. He said, less is more sometimes, like you don't have to do, 27 moves when you can get away with 4, if you do them right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, let me see, what's his name? Harry Smith,
Yeah.
for a big man, he's just, the best, in my point of view. But he used to do this and do that and do that, and it was great. I said, Harry, only give them 3 or 4 of those fancy moves, because if you give them all at one time, you've got nothing to come back with,
Right.
So he does great. I love that kid. He's
Now, how much of that, Tony, is on like the wrestlers doing that style themselves versus like the scripts that are being gave to them? Is it a little bit of both, or is it more the wrestlers continuing to do the high spots?
well, I would say it's a little bit of both, but then, when the agent used to give them, well, you do this, you do that, you do, it's like, Jesus, we're going to give you something whether you want it or not, to the fans. And I don't think it's 100% right, but then unfortunately, the guys, they don't have anybody to lead them. I had the privilege of, working with Stan the Man Stasiak, Buddy Wolf, Blackjack Lanza, Blackjack Mulligan, Mr. Fuji, Don Morocco. They were all great guys, and they learned from the old timers, and now they were old timers, and they were teaching me.
Yeah.
Even you were talking about amateur wrestling. If a guy had an amateur background, like there was one guy, Stasiak's boy. He looked good, and I told him, he was a fairly decent amateur. I says, start with the amateur thing, and he was a heel. So I said, have your opponent like out wrestle you, and he would know how to do it because he had the amateur background, even if his opponent didn't have any amateur background.
Sure.
And he said, oh, do you think the people would believe it? He just didn't get it. You're a heel, you're trying something, and you have the baby face out wrestle you, then that makes the heel, get angry, get pissed off, and you get reaction from the fans.
Yeah.
Dory Funk Jr. I wrestled him in Warren, Ohio, I think it was, and I was going over. And we done a little thing where I took a bump out, and then what he did, he suplexed me in, and I dropped behind him. And when he turned around, I small packaged him, and the referee went 1, 2, and he raised his shoulder, and I like kind of cinched up, and they went 1, 2, and Dory raised his shoulder again, and then I cinched up, and it went 1, 2, 3, and then. I let him go. He kicked out. I rolled out. He got up. He kicked the ropes. He raised hell, and the people, they loved it. It was a simple little finish.
Yeah.
No, that you can talk about now,
So. Yeah. No, it's now you got to do so many different spots. I mean, it's crazy. But I think, go right back to what you said before, the psychology. If you tell a good enough story, it's going to get over. I loved it when I found out whoever I was working with that night. If I would simply just go to them to find out, hey, do you have any amateur wrestling background? And if they did, that was fantastic. Just to do something different, just from a tie up. I don't go from a tie up to I go into like a Greco-Roman clinch, and then we go into a little pummel spot, and then push off with each other. But it was something different that the audiences never saw before, just to show a couple of little pummeling spots, and then move off from there.
Yeah, I used to love to start matches like that, if somebody could, guide me along.
I'm curious, Tony, what was life like on the road as a road agent? What were some of your responsibilities?
Well, just to make sure that the show run right, and then if there was like, I remember there was we were in St. Louis, we had a pretty packed house there, and Hope wasn't able to get in because of the weather. There was snow, so we made the announcement the beginning of the show that Hulk Hogan hasn't been able to land at St. Louis Airport, and we kept them updated up to half intermission, and then made the announcement that he wouldn't be here tonight because they will not, whoever they are, will not let his plane land. So, but we had a 17-man battle royal, and I think Mr. Perfect was supposed to be wrestling Hulk that night. So we allowed people to get their money back, at the end of a certain match. I think maybe the fourth match. And not a whole lot of people got their money back, but we had that battle royal, and then I left Perfect and Dusty in there for about 10 minutes, and they had a little bit of match, and then Dusty went over as the baby face, So it was things like that, and then, check on as an agent, check on the house, tickets sold, and, certain charges that were there. Like if we had TV, you'd have so many fork hoists being rented, and telephone lines being put in, and they tend to put them down sometimes on the settlement for a house show. Of course, we didn't have those, but that could be $2,400, $4,000,
Yeah.
So you used to do those, and then in the bad weather, like I was up in Bangor one time, and it was a beautiful clear day in the morning, and we had to fly from Bangor to Boston to Halifax. Well, they didn't have. I got up like 6 o'clock in the morning because I seen there was a storm in Boston. So I called the airline to see if our flight was going, and it wasn't. So then I asked them, I said, could you get a plane to carry like 17 wrestlers with an average weight of 260 pounds? And they called me back and they said, well, we don't have a plane to carry but we got two planes. So I rented the two planes and we flew to Halifax. We didn't go to Boston because, we couldn't go. So that was one of the responsibilities of a road agent,
Make sure the show goes on
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah, we never missed a show. Then from Halifax, we flew to Montreal, and then Montreal, the first show was Ottawa, which we drove there, and then drove back to Montreal and had the show there. But in that same storm, they were in Pittsburgh, and they got stuck in Pittsburgh. I think some guys were there 3 or 4 days. One guy tried to drive home to Detroit, and cops stopped him and said, you either go back to the hotel or it was that bad.
I know you got to see many different eras, but one of the things that gets discussed a lot was which was the bigger period, the 80s or the 90s. In your opinion, which one do you think really took that top spot?
Well, I think the 90s, because that's when I was an agent. But I wrestled through the 70s, pretty much the whole 70s. But the 90s, that's when I think it got established, because Vince took over, I think, in '84, and it was building, and I think the 90s, had it I mean, we used to do sellout after sellout after sellout.
Was that the Attitude Era? Was that the Attitude Era?
I think it could have been. I see stuff and people ask me questions, and I know it was there, but I have no idea because I was doing what
Doing your
I
job.
was doing. Like I was responsible for pairing up on television back then. Who the guy was going to work with. I'd have one of our guys, and then I'd bring local guys in, and that was my responsibility. And I was pretty much all tied up in that. And I see things now on TV, and I said, God, I was there. I know I was, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I was actually very impressed with when I was working for WWF WWE, I should say. It's WWF and then turned to WWE. But
Yeah.
when I was first working for the company, they said that it was like a really early time frame that I was supposed to arrive to the arena. So as I'm arriving to the arena, I am seeing, I mean, there's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 tractor trailer trucks that are there. And I mean, there's just lines of cable going all over the place and whichever arena it was. But the first time you went to the first door, it'd be like Vince's office this way, talent this way, cafeteria. Yeah. I mean, it was like all these papers were taped right up on the wall. You knew exactly where to go to. And it was, I go, what is like a military operation? I was very impressed as to how thorough it was. I mean, and they had seamstresses there so that if somebody lost their gear, they can whip them out a new outfit right then and there. And they had people that could do your hair, dust the circles out from underneath your eyes. I mean, literally, they had things to do everything except wrestle the match. And even then, if it's on day 2 of taping, they could almost even wrestle the match for you. So I was very impressed.
Yeah, they certainly had a thing going there. I think now they have when I left, I think they had 18 or 19 trucks on the road.
Wow.
What was it like working for Vince McMahon, Tony?
Yeah, well, I met Vince in 72 when I got there, and he was doing the interviews and the play-by-play. And, I got on all right with that. You were talking about no cell phones and everything, and we had beepers. And I talked to Vince, and I was going to Washington, D.C., down the Jersey Turnpike. And my beeper goes off, and I look, and it's Vince. Now, I got to figure when the next rest stop is, so I can get off and call him. So
okay, wait, Tony, let me stop you. Call from what? Because this is nostalgia.
Yeah. No, I call from a payphone.
Exactly.
And I'd be calling him at home because he was at home. So then I'd find the payphone and I'd go there and I'd call him, and I had my number that like a credit card expense number or telephone number. You dial the number you wanted, and then you'd put in your number to get it charged to.
Yeah.
And then I call him. I said, Vince, Tony here, you paged me. And he started laughing. He said, I just want to see if it worked. So he had a sense of humor.
Yeah, no, that just kind of funny because I know I wanted to simply say that the words payphone, because most young people, they're not going to know what a payphone is. They're used to this era of the cell phone here now, and it's kind of like going, that's technology. It has advanced with and it's advancing at such a rapid rate here now. So what kind of cameras you guys had to used to use, and how it keeps scaling down,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember in Hamburg and Allentown when we first done it, they had 2 cameras. I think they had one up high and the other one down a little bit low. And those are the only cameras. I mean, there was no cameras around the ring, I mean, you want to get a close-up, you turned the lens and it zoomed in.
Tony, so you retired from WWE when in 2014?
2014, 2013. I don't exactly remember. I should have written it down.
But, what have you been doing since then?
Oh, well, I was involved in some real estate and we had a 21 unit apartment building. So what I used to do, I used to maintain it. And, if somebody moved out, I could go in there and paint it and put new blinds up and, replace the vanity, replace the toilet if needed, just go through and get it ready for the next person. And
was this your piece of real estate that you were managing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we owned it. There was three of us, but I done the work. So I'd get a couple of guys if we needed painted. So there'd be three of us in there, and I'd be painting too and getting it ready. Anyway, I'd get it ready in a week. One of them, it was ready in 4 days. The tenants moved out on Sunday, and new tenants moved in on Saturday. So if you leave it empty for a month, you've lost $1,200.
Yep.
Right. And it's probably would have cost us more to have somebody come in and do a professional job, but I had the same colored paint. So, I just, clean the walls and then just go over with it. So if you missed a little bit,
it blended in.
You didn't notice it. Oh, I used to do everything. I'd replace windows. I'd replace faucets, toilets, shower fittings, and some stuff I wasn't too good at. But then I got somebody that's what they did, so they do it. I'd patch holes in walls and doors, and I was pretty frugal. So if I could save a door that had a little hole in it, I'd save it.
Well, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a lot of people just don't have any kind of skill sets. But we live in a world today. You can Google almost anything to where you can actually look up how to repair drywall, and you can look up all kinds of stuff now. I mean, where before you did not have Google was not there. So
yeah, I do that pretty. Actually, I done it just recently with something I was doing. It was only in the last couple of days. Oh, I had a washing machine. It wouldn't spin. It wouldn't spin out, and it was the lid. The lid latch, that was broke. And I got online, and they said you can bypass that. So I bypassed it, and I got it going. There's all sorts of stuff. Then the water pipe was leaking from the meter into the house, and the city had come down and they'd put a couple of 90-degree pipes on it, and what do you call it? PVC, but they didn't glue. They didn't glue one piece. So it came off, and I seen it, and I thought, oh my God, I'm responsible for it. So this is going to cost me about $800 or something. So I found the problem, and I got some glue, and I was able to glue it, and the job was fixed.
It's good to have some handyman type of skill sets. It's so many things are it's just junk today. I mean, it's so cheaply built. It's like going, people. Stuff before would last a whole lot longer, and now it's like you can barely use it, and it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why they do that. Like even an appliance now lasts 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
Tony,
do you have much to do with the business anymore? Or are you going around and
nothing. Yeah, I've been invited to a couple of autograph sessions in May. Which I'm going to do, but that's about it. I haven't had. I go to Waterloo regular. The
National
Gable Museum. Yeah, and that's pretty nice because they've got a few pro wrestlers down there now, because I think the pro wrestlers they donate to the museum, And I see quite a few people I haven't seen for a while, so that's nice. You know, I bump into Jerry Briscoe pretty often.
Yeah, no, it's a great little museum because it's a combination of there's like an amateur wrestling wing for the state of Iowa. Then there's a wing for professional wrestling. There's I'm trying to think. There's 3 different wings. I mean, Iowa specifically professional wrestling, and I think maybe it's amateur wrestling. I think those are the 3 wings that they have. So it's a great place to see a good cross sampling of things, and because there's a lot of professional wrestlers that were actually amateur wrestlers at one point in time as well.
Yeah.
Do you know where those fan fests are going to be coming up in May, Tony?
Could you repeat that, please?
Do you know where those fan fests or the autograph signings are going to be there in May?
Oh, I know there's the one up in it's in New Jersey. I think the Menon Arena. And I can't think of the name of the town. It's just below Parsippany. And then I've got one in April at Orlando, you know, which isn't too far from me because I'm down in Port Canaveral.
Okay.
And I think there's one up in Philadelphia in that area. But I know I'm going up there for the weekend, and I've got about 4 of them over the week. I go up on Friday, and this guy's got me booked in about 4 of them, I think. So
that's awesome. Is there any links or any place that if somebody was wanting to come and see you or wanted to get some tickets to that they could find you?
Yeah, I can't think of that one at the Menon Arena. That's pretty big. That's been going for about 4 years now. If you put in Menon Arena, New Jersey, I can't think of the town.
Morristown.
Morristown, that's it. Yeah.
Well, Tony, I appreciate you coming on so much today, and I have definitely enjoyed this. And between you and Luke, we got you guys back to back, New Zealand representing.
Yeah,
you guys have definitely put some years into the business.
Yeah. I think I met Luke in 68, 67, 68, I think, and then he came over here. Him and Bob, and they went to Montreal for a while, and they got down here. I just read his book, and it's a pretty damn interesting book. But I think it was interesting for me because I could relate to a lot of the subject matter in it, you know. But I didn't realize they'd been around for so long, and funny they were such heels all their career till they got to New York, and then they became big baby faces.
Yeah.
I found this really unique, that the fact that we had 2 different back-to-back podcasts from two different individuals that are from the same country there. So is that from New Zealand? Because I actually had the opportunity of making a trip to Australia, and it was like one of my very first times ever going to Australia. And I kept thinking, wow, New Zealand's pretty close by. I go, I may never get this close. I go, I need to go there. So I did. I went over to New Zealand, spent several days over there. Really just another beautiful country.
Oh, yeah. And that South Island is like, holy moly. I mean, you could literally spend, I would say, 4 months in an RV touring just the South Island.
Wow.
You know, just taking your time, and it's beautiful down there. And they got good wine down there too. And plus they have good mussels and good oysters.
Nice. Yeah. May have to put that on my list there now of doing something like that. But
yeah.
Tony, I really enjoyed having you on there as well. And again, I think we bumped into each other a few different times when I was actually working for WWF there as well. So it's good to see you once again.
Okay, well, thanks very much. And Dan, you know, I've always held you in the highest esteem, you know, for your wrestling ability, and it was great talking to you.
No, again, I look forward to actually catching up here again, and
Yeah.
I know I've got a couple of trips coming up for Florida, so I'll definitely reach out to you
Yes.
as well.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, take care.
Okay,
Have a great day.